right, everybody. Welcome to the GreenCourt Connections podcast. I'm your host, Jay Bland, Chief Growth Officer here at GreenCourt. GreenCourt Connections exists to help connect our listeners on a deeper level with the hardworking folks that work in and interact with government agencies and court systems. I'm absolutely fired up about this episode today. Our guest today, in my opinion, is the definition of a servant leader. We've known each other for 3 years, and we've been working together for over a year now. And not once have I ever heard her ask for anything for herself. She's always thinking about others, and I think that's what makes her so great at her job. Please join me in welcoming Konitra Jack, the Child Support Enforcement Director for the Louisiana Department of Children and Family Services. Konitra, thank you for being here today.
I'm glad to be here, Jay.
Well, let's get started. There's a lot of fun things to do in Louisiana. I've been a few times to some places that I'll go back, and I've been a few times to some places I won't because they're too much fun. But if someone were to visit Louisiana for the first time, what is the first thing they should go see or go do?
First thing you're going to do in Louisiana is eat. Right? You are going to eat. Whether you are going to, if you're coming to Baton Rouge, we're going to stop at Poor Boy Lloyd's and get a po' boy, or we'll go to Piran's if you want a sit-down meal, and we'll have some fried alligator and some just great food, some bread pudding, and we'll just enjoy that first, and then we'll have to dance it off. So we'll go and find a great place to dance, and you can learn some Zydeco, and we'll have a good time. So the only thing I'd have to say is come to Louisiana, just bring your smile and get ready to have fun and leave all you could bring your sadness or your depression and those things with you. We'll help you with them. We will help you with them.
Amen to that. We just had a team down there with you and your team for your state conference. And as part of that state conference, they do a crawfish portion for dinner. And my team was asking me if I knew any secrets on how to get that smell off their fingers. So do you know any secrets to get that smell off your hands?
So we have all kinds, right? Some people use lemon. A
Okay.
little lemon will help. I prefer coffee.
Okay.
Coffee will get that smell right off. And if you are having a problem with the smell of crawfish, then you obviously did not drink enough. So I would say go back and enjoy yourself because you did not have enough fun if you're worried about the smell of crawfish on your hands. So just
I'll tell
enjoy next time.
Yeah, I'll tell Ren Aubrey, who's on our team, just a fantastic person. She was all worried about how her hands were smelling. So now I'll have an answer for her: lemon and coffee. It sounds like that's
Yeah,
the fix.
exactly.
Well, I doubt, I could be wrong, but I doubt that when you were a kid, your dream job was to be the child support director in Louisiana. So I'll ask this question: what was your dream job as a kid?
As a kid, my dream job was to be a lawyer, right? I, I of course I don't know if it was my idea or my parents' idea because I was an argumentative kid, right? Or a kid who could justify and give a reason for doing things. So it may have been their idea that I adopted, but that's what I wanted to do, and which is what I did after I actually came to child support, right? Because I actually did not go to law school until I became the policy manager. So I spent 4 years in school at night going until I finished. And shortly after is when I became director. So it was a broken road, but we got there.
Amen. So I saw in your biography, you have a JD and MBA, which I went down that same route. I did them at the same time. Did you split those up?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
by many, many years. I did the MBA way back when, and e- actually before I came to the state, I did the MBA because I was more focused on customer service in the private sector. Just to shed light on that, I was a Radio Shack store manager when we had Radio Shacks, and that was where I was going. I was going to corporate and I was doing those things. So that is where I was going. And then I wrote my final MBA, my final paper on Radio Shack. We did a business plan. And in my business plan, I realized I needed a career change because Radio Shack did not appear to, my SWOT analysis did not look like they were going to survive. So,
I remember my first time in a Radio Shack. I was watching the what were a Home Alone. So the first Home Alone movie with Macaulay Culkin, and then the second one when he's in New York, he has that little handheld a tape recorder that he can
mhm.
play stuff on and record himself. And I was like, I gotta have one of those. Like that's a great way to play jokes on people. So the first time I went to a Radio Shack was to get one of those.
So yeah, did you find it? And uh,
I did.
that was in the day when Radio Shack was about gadgets,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And less about cell phones. So it was great to be a part of that adventure
You know, you mentioned
while we had it.
you mentioned you wanted to be a lawyer when you were a kid, and that people would say you sound like a lawyer. I can remember many a times my parents telling me when I was a kid, you might as well just go ahead and be a lawyer one day. It was not a compliment. It was not a compliment. Uh,
Exactly.
it was not a compliment. My dad's a physician, so he has a special place in his heart for lawyers, is a nice way to put it. But when he would say that to me, he was not being nice. I think he was saying I was arguing too much.
Exactly.
Well,
But I just adopted it as my idea.
yeah, somebody's got to do it. Might as well be us, right?
Exactly.
Well, along the way, your journey has taken so many different angles and so many different roads to get where you are today. I'm sure you've had quite a few mentors, but if you had to narrow it down to one or two mentors, who has been the most impactful mentor to you in your professional life?
So this is actually quite difficult. I've had great people who have just poured into me different things. And when I think about who is the most impactful to who I am today, I have to go way back to my very first job. I had a manager. I was 15, um, working for Walmart, right? My very first job. And I remember his name was Larry, and he was the store manager, older guy. So, this is like he's telling me to do something, clean a shelf or something. But then I remember he got down there with me and cleaned the shelves. And his philosophy was he wasn't asking me to do anything that he wasn't willing to do. And I still to this day do that with my people is we will sit down even if we've got to take the first one and do it together until you feel like you're in a place where you can go. That I believe just starting off with that at the beginning of my work experience really placed me in a great place for moving forward. So that's one, and the other was actually um, so many, just so many. I could actually say Lisa, right? Lisa Andre. I can remember when I was policy manager, sitting down with Lisa. Just I don't know if you've ever had a disagreement with Lisa, but she's a great person to disagree with.
Yes. Yes.
And but it was a natural process that led me to learn that that could be the part of a great thought process and working together and collaborating a different exchange of ideas. And so to this day, I try and make it so that not only me, but everybody gets to bring up their voice. It's okay if we disagree, right? Like Lisa was never had a problem with disagreeing. It is important if you disagree and you don't say anything, right? So it's best if we just go ahead and speak that. So we can uh, discuss it, and sometimes one of us can be educated, whichever one that is. So I would have to say of that those two come to mind of uh, people who have really inspired me and been impactful.
Lisa and Larry. Sounds like those are the two. Lisa, a bunch of our listeners know, has joined our team over the past couple of years, and she has just been absolutely fantastic. Her subject matter expertise, her local knowledge of Louisiana program, and her willingness to roll up her sleeves and get down in the work with us. We've absolutely loved having her, and I can see why she was such an impactful mentor to you. I learned something from her every day, and I think you nailed it. I mean, she doesn't look at discussions as a zero sum game, as in somebody wins and somebody loses. That's not the way people should look at it. I think
No.
all too often today, people are so attached to their position that they think anything different is wrong or bad. I mean, you see that in politics, and I can't stand it. So I'm glad to. I love talking to people who have that same view that you can be different and not be wrong.
Exactly. Exactly. Because we both have different perspectives.
Yep.
And we might be able to learn and meet in the middle, but we have to leave room for that.
All right, moving on to the next one. So we know you're the child support director now in Louisiana, but back up a little bit and tell us about how you got started in the child support program originally.
So when I started, I had actually when people ask what it was I was looking for when I came to child support, I always tell them a job. Right? I was really looking for a job. Like, okay, um, I had left Radio Shack and was supposed to walk into my new career, and 4 months later, I was still looking for a job.
Yeah.
So I was very thankful when I got that call. And then after, I think it probably took maybe about a year before I figured out that I can do this work. I was a frontline caseworker in collections and enforcement. So I did, we call them lobby days, right? Where I had 2 days a week where it was my job to answer the lobby. Whoever came and whoever showed up, that was my job to go sit out in the interview rooms and meet with them and discuss things. But just sitting with people and meeting them where they were and figuring out what they needed and listening to them. Yeah, I couldn't always help, but sometimes people know that you can't help. Um, which is an interesting thing that I learned was that a lot of the families I was dealing with, they had been dealing with child support longer than me.
Right.
They knew our systems.
Right.
I was one of how many caseworkers they had before I got there. So just acknowledging that with them and just being that one to listen was what I tried to do. Right. To be the one to hear them and see them and try and help. Um, it was a great part of the work, and that's eventually what kept me here was doing that. And then I became a court worker, where it was my job to go to court, you know, and stay in court sometimes till late nights. 7 o'clock or so, leaving the courthouse after meeting with families and doing that, and eventually I came to state office to work on a new modernization effort, and Lisa and Lydia actually came and got me off the project and offered, told me about a job that was opening here in state office, and I applied, and the rest is history. So, but yeah, way back when it was just me and the customers doing lobby days and listening to their stories and giving them the opportunity to tell the truth, right? Just let's see where you are. And it was a great time just being there, talking to people and getting it done.
Yeah, uh, we were talking earlier about how I was just came back from the WICSEC planning meeting, And I found myself in a conversation with a few child support legends, and we were talking about customer service, which your lobby days, that's customer service. And we talked about how, unlike maybe at Verizon or at Chick-fil-A, the stakes are so high with this customer service because you got folks who probably already don't trust government, right? They're a
Mhm.
little bit wary of that. And if you're not very careful with how you support them, that could have ripple effects for them and their family for a long, long time. So, the stakes are so high with customer service in child support.
Yeah, and I think where we are right now, we're definitely at a critical point to where it doesn't take a lot for us to um, come off as disingenuous because we have created a lot of mistrust
Yep.
with the families that we serve. The only way that we can earn that trust back is by being just as intentional as any other relationship that we're trying to establish. I can tell you, being the coming into this space as director and having um, all the files, right, all the binders and stuff, I was able to one day sit down and open those binders and see how did we get here, right? And what I saw was some very intentional actions that we took to develop the punitive program that we had become. We it, very intentional, very deliberate about the steps that we were taking and the actions that we were taking. And at the time, that was what the program, that was the framework for the program and how we operated. Um, Over the last few years, as we've made that change, what I realized was in order to make that change is we have to acknowledge where we were, acknowledge how we got there, and be just as intentional as we were. I mean, I used the same framework for our family centered collaboration work group was the same framework they used for um, the high frequency enforcement actions and those things. I used the same framework. I didn't reinvent the wheel. I just looked and said, okay, how did they do it? Well, we'll do the same thing to undo it or to turn the corner and reframe it. So thankfully, we're starting to see some increases in our performance, but I think that's what we have to do as a program. We have to be honest and we have to be deliberate in our actions. And that is the only way we're going to incur some trust. We're going to earn some trust with our families.
Yeah, and that trust is so key. I mean, it's such an important program. And without the trust, people don't buy into the program. They don't come in and ask for your help. We've seen a program, a child support program that is completely focused on enforcement, right? I mean, if you go back and look at the history of the program, it's enforcement, enforcement, enforcement. And what we're seeing today is a shift towards engagement. We've seen
Mm-hmm.
it not just with name changes. NCA changed their name, OCSE changed their name. We're seeing name changes, but we're seeing people do more than that. We're seeing programs be put in place that increases engagement. My question for you is, how do you balance the two? Because you can't completely move away from enforcement. The effects that would have on the program and the families wouldn't be good. So, how do you balance the two?
Well, first was I reminded our staff that that's still our job, right? Like when we think of the five services that we provide, enforcement of um, child support orders and medical support orders, that's still our job. That has not gone away. So we are not letting up off the gas on that. We are not um, removing our enforcement actions. What we are doing is we're putting a lot of focus on the other services that we provide, in addition to making sure that our actions are appropriate based on the situations that we have before us. We were just having a conversation about being in the best interest of the child and um, be, getting the most support is in the best interest of the child. Having a high support order, is in the best interest of the child. Having a support order that you can collect
Right, right.
and actually get those funds to the child is also in the best interest of the child. So when we remember those things, we have to do it. We have to just focus on the fact that there are better ways that we can do it, right? There are better ways that we can do our work. Um, so that's kind of what I've reminded staff is that it's still our job. We just have to make sure it's appropriate. So I brought back the quadrants from way back when I was a worker, the ability to pay versus, ability to pay versus willingness. We have quadrants there back and introduce them, just letting them know that this is the posture that we're going to be in for these particular families. Because they're not all the same. So I think that has helped. But it's still a struggle, right? It's still a struggle because you have those hard-nosed enforcement staff who just believe that's all we need to do, and it's great. It's great to have them. We still need them. We just have to make sure that it's appropriate.
Yep. Well said. Um, kind of along those same lines, we've seen a lot of change in the program, and we're going to see more. So if you look forward, between now and 2034, over the next 10 years, what are some changes that you would like to see in the program as a whole?
In the programs, I would like to see um, fully funded visitation services for us because I think if we are going to spend a lot of time connecting families by establishing parentage, we need to do what we can to help those families stay connected um, and to build those real relationships. The other thing I'd like to see is fully funded work programs for our families. Fortunately for us, we were able to get approval to use incentive dollars to create an enforcement, I mean, to create a workforce program. So we have one, but I really believe that's something that should be funded as a part of the child support program. Um, I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's duplication of effort with other federal agencies, but I really believe it's something that should be fully funded. Um, I think that is it. I'm not sure if we need the DRA fee anymore. Um, the $35 for every $550 collection. I don't know if that is helpful. And I think that's all I can come up with off the top of my head. I'm sure with more time I could come up with a longer list of things I'd like to
Yeah, I mean,
see.
but I think it's important to be focused. I mean, if there were 50 things you wanted to change in the program, there's probably no chance you get to those 50. So a rifle approach makes a lot of sense. And I know that's an interesting topic because there are plenty of programs out there in states for workforce development, right? But we don't always get the folks who are needing to pay child support. They don't get the right preference points, if you will. I think a system would make a lot of sense when, if you are part of the social safety net, that you have an ability to move up that list, which we just don't see. So I think it makes a lot of sense for the program to have their own.
Yeah, I do. And one thing that we have that other programs don't have is we have access to the entire family. We have both parents, and sometimes one parent has more of a barrier to getting employment than the other. So the way we built our program is to have the opportunity to support both, right? So maybe non-custodial parent or dad or whoever that paying parent is needs more support and it's going to take them longer to get there, then we have the option to support the custodial parent to say, hey, maybe we can help get some extra training or extra certifications that will help them to be able to improve their career efforts or their work efforts so that we reach the ultimate goal, and that's self-sufficiency for the family, not just one parent. So I think that puts us in a unique position
Yeah.
to help.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talk about, yeah, you're here to collect payments, and that's still important to do. But supporting healthy co-parenting and positive family relationships, that is increasingly important also, and it's getting the attention that it deserves. So, in your experience with the child support system in Louisiana, what key challenges do Louisiana families face, and how can innovative approaches contribute to both financial security and improved family dynamics for those Louisiana families?
I think for the size of state as we are, we have a really diverse population when it comes to urban areas versus suburban versus rural areas. And not all of the areas have the same resources
Right.
that they do. You know, we can think about New Orleans and it being such a large metropolitan area. They have a lot more resources than, say, our Calcasieu parishes and our Cameron parish, who's still rebuilding from Hurricane Laura that was several years ago. So I think that is a challenge for us, is being able to figure out processes and things that work for both areas and figuring out what works. What we found is finding out what works in the areas, engaging the people who live and work in those areas to engage their own communities and saying, what do you need? And we had one community says, you know what, we need the ability to take cash payments because we have a population who are self-employed down by the way down by the coast or way in the Gulf, right? So that's what they needed. So they have the ability to do that. Sure, if that's what that population needs, if they need y'all to come sit down and set up to collect the payments, then go for it. And then you have other areas that want things a little bit more streamlined. They want to be able to make payments in the middle of the night,
Right.
or they want to be able to make payments by cash. So figuring out how to honor that diverse population and to honor their uniqueness, right? Because that's us. We love being unique. We're special and we love it. It has is always a challenge, but thankfully we have people from those areas who don't mind sharing.
Right.
And opportunities like conference last week give us the opportunity to reach some of those communities and have those people come and say, you know what, in my area that just really didn't work for my population. So that has been a key for us, is just making sure we have input to know what the concerns are from those different areas.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to think about it for sure, because Louisiana is not just Louisiana. It's not one flavor. It's not one size fits all. Lafourche is not Jefferson. Baton Rouge is not New Orleans. I mean, they're different. And do you think your structure? There's a state office, there's local state offices, and then of course you rely on the local prosecutors. Do you feel like that structure gives you more of an insight into what particular areas need and want?
Yeah, I think it does. And it gives us a presence
Yeah.
by having those local prosecutors or the district attorney's offices. It gives us a presence in all of the parishes where it would be completely, I don't know, it would be cost prohibitive for us to have a presence in all of our parishes and have an office there. But this gives us the ability to do so.
Yeah.
So there's somebody in that parish who can answer a child support question.
And people they feel more comfortable with people who are from their area. I mean,
Hmm.
in Georgia we have this. I remember when we first started this company, I went to meet with a judge in Augusta, Georgia, and Augusta is 2.5 hours from Atlanta, but it might as well be 27 hours from Atlanta. And they don't really love Atlanta. And when I sat down in his office, the judge looked at me in his Augusta accent and said, "I want you to know one thing, son. This is not Atlanta." I was like, when a 70-year-old man calls you son, even though he knows you're not his son, he means business. But right then I thought, you know what, these folks in these rural communities think that folks from Atlanta just want to come tell them how to do things. And you probably get some of that in Louisiana. They want to see and talk to people from their area.
They do. Not to mention the people from that area know each other,
Right.
right? So I remember having one parish who said that no, when people are missing from court, we just call their relative. Like we'll just call his mama and ask him where he's at, right? So and they meant it wholeheartedly. They're like, we passed by there right on the way to the office. So it's great because, like I said, they know each other, and a lot of times in some of these parishes, the district attorney's office might be one of the largest employers
Right.
in that area.
Right.
So not only are they serving their populations, they're serving each other.
Right.
So so it's important to remember that as well.
Yeah. Well, let's end with this, which may be my favorite question because everybody who joins us, their answer is so different. But the question is, you know, when you're retired and this chapter of your life is all over, what do you want your legacy to be?
Honestly, Jay, I will tell you that that's a difficult question, I guess. I'm not sure. I don't think my legacy would be about me, right?
I don't either. Yeah.
I would want people to um, recognize the impact that I've had in their lives
Mm.
and appreciate the that they learned something that helped them, and to remember me for that. That's what I want my legacy to be. I want them to say that I helped them be better, right? Or they learned something that they can take and share with somebody else. I think more than anything, that's what I would want my legacy to be. Just that I impacted the lives of their individual life or their career or what have you. That I fed something into them that they can take.
Yeah, and I think that's very on brand with how I introduced you as a servant leader. I've never heard you ask for anything for yourself, and that the answer to that question is on brand for that. So, Konitra, I want to thank you for all the work you do for Louisiana families. I really enjoy working with you. I've enjoyed getting to know you, and I really appreciate you joining the GreenCourt Connections podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jay. I look forward to seeing the next ones.